Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thriving Thursday. Welcome, welcome. I hope that you all have had a beautiful, uplifting week and that you are accomplishing what you want to accomplish and that you have things to look forward to this coming weekend. I'm Carla. I'm a former management consultant turned full-time RV nomad turned entrepreneur and life and career coach. And on Thriving Thursdays, I broadcast from wherever our little home takes us to share stories and reflections from the road on career empowerment and better living, and really helping you to live your dreams, live your someday, not later, but live them now. And as you can see this week, I am broadcasting from the beach, my favorite place, one of my favorite places in the world. For those of you that know me well, you know that I grew up on the beach in Mexico. And so to be back, it's not the same beach, but it's the beach nonetheless. To be back is just such a wonderful experience. To wake up to the waves, to work and look outside my window and see the ocean is just so good for my soul. I have a story to tell you about something that happened this week that inspired this show today and what I'm going to talk about. So on Tuesday morning, I was working, minding my own business, and I look out my window and I see this guy very close to our camper, just right over there. He was flying a kite. And that's something that is not uncommon to see on the beach, right? Plenty of people fly their kites. But what really struck me about what this man was doing was not what he was doing, which was to fly a kite. He was looking up at the sky, completely enthralled in the experience that he was having. It wasn't it wasn't what he was doing that seemed odd to me. What really struck me was more so my reaction. My first reaction was, it's a Tuesday. It's a work day. Does this guy have nothing else to do? Like, what is it that he has done that has allowed him to fly a kite on a Tuesday? And so I realized that I was getting a lot of judgment within me, like being like, why is this so abnormal that somebody is flying a kite? And I think that the other thing that came up for me was like, what is the point of flying a kite? This guy was doing it simply for the joy of it. And it made me think of someone in my life that I have invited to join us today. I am so excited to welcome her in just a few seconds. But this is a person that I have admired for a very long time and who constantly is teaching me to embrace this idea, even if she doesn't know it, that she's teaching me. But by observing her, I'm learning to embrace this idea that this guy had already mastered so clearly, which was the idea of embracing joy without having an agenda. It's something that I've always struggled with. I'm always thinking of anything that I do has to have a purpose. It has to have an outcome attached to it. And this person that I'm about to bring in is someone that really has just, she has it, she's gotten it. She is able to really prioritize joy simply for the purpose of joy, not because there's an agenda or an outcome or a goal attached to it, to whatever she's doing. So I'm going to bring in Anna Wheeler. There she is. Hey, Anna.
Hi, Carla.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's fun to be
So
here.
Anna is my sister-in-law. And I didn't invite her just because she's my sister-in-law. I invited her because, as I just shared with you, she's someone that from the moment that I've met, I've admired the way that she's able to really be present, but more so than that, she's really able to see joy for what it is, for the fact that it is simply about being joyful in the moment and not about getting things done, right? And I think, Anna, you've known me, and I know that you've said, I admire the way you set goals, but I got to say that I admire you and the way that you live your life, really treasuring each moment for what it is, and really pursuing joy because it's joy, not because it's something else. So I'm so glad that you are here. And I'm going to start with the first question on my mind, which is really, what does joy mean to you? How would you define it?
Okay. Well, Carla, I do admire you a lot, and I'm very flattered that you admire me.
I
um,
do.
uh, Joy to me, I think is a byproduct of contentment And when you asked me to join this, I was really I was really inspired to put some thought into really what that means. And and I think ultimately for me, if I am consistently experiencing joy, then it's a signal to myself that that things are balanced. You know, I'm not working too hard. I'm not relaxing too hard. Things are balanced.
Yeah, I like that idea of balance, of feeling that things are in order, things are as they should.
Right.
Good. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Okay. So, one thing that you know that I've made you aware of, I don't even know if you thought much about this, but I've recently brought up the fact that back in the spring, you asked me a question that has been really life changing. It really, really has. And it was back in the spring. We were living pretty much with you and with your husband, Max, and your son, our nephew. And I'm really curious to know. So you asked me a question. The question was, Carla, do you ever do anything? Or what do you do? I don't think that you meant, you said, do you ever do anything? You said, what is it that you do in your life purely for the joy of it? Not because there's an outcome or because there's a goal or there's a reason for you to, but simply something that you just enjoy. And I have to say that when you asked me that, my first reaction was getting defensive. Like I thought, like, well, of course I do things just for joy. What do you mean? But you really just stumped me. And so I'm curious to know, like, what were you observing? What prompted you to ask me that question back in March or April, whenever it was last year?
Well, in hindsight, I think it was very rude of me, first of all, to even ask that question, and I'm very glad that you are the kind of person that just assumes good intentions because there were only good intentions. But
I
in
knew that.
hindsight, it really struck me that that was actually a very rude thing to say. But I don't exactly remember all the details, but I think that night, I think we were starting to relax on the front porch. We had the Christmas lights on, and we were out there. And I think you'd had a long day at work, and then you finally came out, and after work was finished, I think you're ready to join everybody. And correct me if I'm wrong if my memory is a bit hazy, but I think you said, "Oh, I have to do yoga."
I probably did. Yes.
and and uh and and I guess I had thought that you did yoga because it was relaxing, and I thought, like, well, what, why would she do yoga if she doesn't want to, you know? So I think that's what led to that question.
Yeah. And I think that when you asked me that question, I knew in myself that I was under a lot of stress, and you just shone light on something that I wasn't seeing myself, which was that I was doing things because I felt that I had to. Whereas there are things like yoga is something that I do enjoy doing, but it felt my language around it was very much a have to, because I did have an outcome attached to that. And that's something that I do for a lot of things. So like yoga, I remember at the time I was like, I have to do yoga because I have to find relaxation,
Yeah,
right? Like it wasn't just like, I'm just going to do yoga because I love it. It was a, this is what it's going to give me, and therefore I'm going to do it. And then I remember I was also reading a book at the time. It was like on health, and I was like, I have to read this book because I need to, lose some weight or learn about my body or whatever. And so I think that that's some, that language that we use oftentimes of this have to, need to, even for the things that we enjoy, like yoga or like reading, it starts to feel like a chore. I think that the key word
yeah,
to shift my mindset, and it's something that I've been trying to do more of, is to say I choose to. Like now I choose to do yoga, and that feels so different, right?
yeah,
Like I choose to do yoga, I choose to read a book, and that has such a different energy attached to it than I have to do yoga.
yeah. That's nice.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to turn the question on you, the question that you asked me back in March or the spring, whenever it was, and ask you like what. And I don't think it was a rude question, by the way. Like you have no idea how much it's changed my life. That question, I tell a lot of people about that because it really made me think. Um, but I'll turn the question on you. What are some things that you do simply for the joy of them, not because there's an agenda or an outcome, but simply what are some things that bring you joy?
Yeah. Um, something that I do. I mean, I would guess every day since I was little, probably. Every day when I'm doing chores, I sing, and I'm certainly no, Susan Boyle or anything like that. Um, it just makes whatever I'm doing nicer.
Yeah.
So that would be a very consistent example for me. Um, but I always have some hobby going on, and I'm sure to other people it seems like maybe like I flip from thing to thing. Um, but I do purposely stop doing things once I'm not enjoying it anymore. I try to make sure that if it's not fun and I don't need to do it, then I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah. I think that takes a lot of self-awareness to stop yourself from doing the things that you may feel that you have to do and be like, hey, like this is not fun anymore. And why am I spending my time doing this? I
Yeah.
think another thing that you do that I has perplexed me at times, I will admit, is that in the middle of the day you'll just play the piano. And I used to think, oh, she must be practicing for some particular purpose, like some performance or something, or she's trying to perfect something. And what I learned is that you really do it because you love it and you're good. You're quite good, I should say. But that's something else that I've always been kind of like, well, like if you're not going to perform, like what's the point? Like why spend time on that? And so I really admire that's something that you've integrated into your day over the last few years, really.
Oh, thanks. And I think maybe you're maybe a little hard on yourself because I see that you do things just for the fun of it as well. I mean, you and Noah are always going on hikes and playing with the dogs, and I mean, you have a very fun-filled, joy-filled life, and um,
Yeah.
I think I think
Thank
you've
you.
got it.
Thank you. I think I've gotten better at it. And I think that our conversation was a pivotal moment for me to become much more aware of when I'm not doing that. And I've half thought of like, what is it when I was looking at I described this guy that I told you about that was flying a kite, in the middle of a Tuesday morning. I think the realization that I had was that I still see joy in finding those joyful moments as like a reward. Like I will work, and even if I am enjoying my work so much these days, but it's still my work. And so if I were to fly a kite, I probably wouldn't just drop things and go and fly a kite on a Tuesday morning. I would finish my work and then in the evening or on the weekend. And I would like to change that. So it's not really, the things that I enjoy are not a reward for after the things that I have to do, but rather that I'm doing things that I choose to do for joy throughout the day, like singing. I love that you sing or that you play the piano. So I think that's something that you have mastered pretty well of just in making joy, those joyful moments, part of your everyday, versus how I still see it, and I'm
Um,
working on seeing it really as a reward, as the
I see.
candy that I get for doing
Oh,
all the things.
yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
Like, yeah, the joy is scheduled.
Gosh, it sounds so boring when you say it that way. But yes, yes, the evening is for things. Yeah, I think I'm gonna find ways this next week to like really challenge myself to bring in little moments, like maybe read a book that I actually enjoy, not a book that is teaching me something, but like a book that I'm reading just for fun, and maybe read 10 minutes, 10 pages during the workday. I feel like
I
it's going to be very uncomfortable for me. I'll be like, I'm wasting time, but I
Cool.
think that I'm going to take a page from your book. But one other question that I had for you is, you have this wonderful little boy who is my nephew, and Noah and I so adore. And children, are notorious for doing what we're talking about, which is dropping everything and really focusing on those things that bring them enjoyment, you know? And
Yeah.
so I'm curious to know, since you had your son, what are some things that you've learned about joy that you didn't know before you became a mom?
Yeah. Oh, they're so sweet. Like, you know, Andrew and all kids, he wakes up in the morning and all that is on his mind is what can I do today? What's the plan? Like what fun can we have today? and that's all that they think about.
Mm.
And if they have things that they can do to have fun, then they do that all day long until they're too tired and they go to sleep, and then they wake up and then they're excited for the day again. Like, what are we going to do today? And I love that. And I remember being a kid,
Yeah.
just playing tag. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the most pointless game in the world. But I remember just being absolutely thrilled to play tag with my friends. Um,
Yeah.
and and that's just a great feeling, like remembering what that was like and remembering what kids have. Um, and there have definitely been times in my life where I've really lost that.
Mm.
And but remembering it, it's like it's such incentive to try to to get hold of it again. And so that's been really inspirational, having a kid. And he's really a model for me, like how to live a day. I mean, obviously I have more responsibilities than he does, but still he's kind of an avenue to getting back to that childlike state.
Yeah. I love that, like this idea of waking up with just looking forward to what you're doing,
Oh
and
yeah.
I've seen Andrew in the moment, and not only does he look forward to it, but he's also really embracing the moment that he's in. He's deep in focus in whatever it is that he's enjoying.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's sad that as adults we lose that.
Mm-hmm.
I was having a conversation earlier this week with a friend of mine, and we've been talking a lot about this idea of play. And we were talking about the fact that, like, even if as we're trying as adults to, when we're consciously trying to play, or like me, to be in the moment, it can feel awkward. So like this guy, I think another thing that struck me about him flying a kite was that he wasn't caring about like what people were saying, or people were like, if people were watching him. I mean, he really was just embedded in whatever it was that he was doing. But I felt it was like I almost felt awkward for him, because I was like, it's a Tuesday, and you're just flying a kite. Or like when I see adults play, like it can feel a little bit awkward. And I
Yeah.
think that that's the conditioning that we have as adults as we grow up, to stray farther and farther away from this idea of just playing, which kids have do so easily.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, Anna, what is a way that you prioritize joy in your life? Like, especially as you're learning from Andrew, what are ways that you talked earlier about, like, the moment that I know I'm not having any more fun, I stop doing that. Like, how do you consciously make sure that you are choosing joy in your day-to-day life?
um I think it probably goes back to what we were talking about right at the beginning about balance.
Mm-hmm.
If I find that that I've gone some time really without much joy, then probably there's something up. Like, it's either there's either something external going on that I can't control, or there's something internal that I need to work on. Um, uh, for example. Well, I own a business, and when we first started out, the first year was very difficult. My husband and I were both up, just wake up in the morning, work all day, long into the night, just both of us working. For quite a long time, this went on, and there just really wasn't very much contentment there at all. Even though we were very proud of our new business, and having the work was a good thing. Um, but we just decided that that's just not what we want for ourselves. We didn't want to live like that. So the first thing we did was just institute a rule that if the sun goes down, we are not working. There's no work to do after the sun goes down. And that made a big difference. That was some time to reconnect and do hobbies or whatever else. But I guess that would be an example of prioritizing joy. Uh,
Yeah.
just getting the balance back, I think.
Yeah, that's a really important point that you bring around having boundaries. And I felt like in my career, I haven't, not always, but many times not have had boundaries. And you always think that, like, if you keep working harder, like I don't even know what it is, but like I've had days where I work till 10 o'clock at night, or the weekends, and I don't know, like, are you really that much more productive? Probably not, because you're exhausted. And so learning to create these boundaries not only gives you balance in your personal life, but I think it also makes you a lot more effective when you know that you have this window of time, and gives you something to look forward to. I think the key though still is how do you make those hours where you sometimes do need to work, how do you embed these little moments of joy? Like how do you make sure that you stand up and you sing for a little bit, or you play the piano, during your lunchtime or something like that. I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
something that I'm learning a lot from you. That it's not just after the sun goes down then I enjoy. It's how do I bring in the joy throughout my day.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know.
It comes naturally to you. But I
uh,
think, I think that's one of the things that I'm taking away from just thinking about our conversation today, and as I observe you, which is this idea of bring don't make joy the reward, make joy the part of your everyday. Make it not schedule joy, but maybe
yeah.
at first, yes, maybe at first you do need to put these little reminders, like how we set reminders for ourselves, or like I have to get up and move for 10 minutes. Maybe it's get up and find something that you really enjoy doing and just do it for 10 minutes. And hopefully with time it starts to become a lot more natural. It starts to become just something that you do without having to have these reminders. Yeah.
I guess too, when there are days that, obviously there are still nights where we have to work late and there's just no other option. But I guess that there's always something that I think can be done just to make it a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm doing something that really, it requires time, but maybe I don't have to think very deeply or something, then just playing music while I work, it turns it into kind of a fun experience. Just having this extra little thing.
Yeah.
So I think there are usually ways to kind of maybe just add joy even in the times when it seems like they're when you're doing something that you don't want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That can make a big difference. Well, Anna, thank you so much. Are there any parting words of wisdom that you want to share with me as we head out?
Uh, well, no, I don't have any wisdom, but I really appreciate being here, and again, I really really admire you, Carla, and I appreciate you
No.
inviting me on.
Thank you, Anna. And by the way, you're my first guest on my Thriving Thursday live show. So, yay! Thank you. This was so fun.
Yes.
Thanks to everyone who joined. I will see you next week. I hope you got some good tips, and just remember, what I'm taking away from my discussion is really to just find little ways to bring joy, not make it a this other thing that's another part of your life, but how can you make joy be embedded into your everyday life? It doesn't have to be big things, but it can really be the small things. And how can you approach your day with the eyes and eagerness and joy of a child? I think
Yeah.
that's really
That's neat.
valuable. Thank you, Anna.
Thanks,
See you
Carla.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.